studies. So I'm Scott Taylor, by the way. I'm one of Dr. McKellar's physician assistants. So we got all those studies. The arteries in the neck, not too bad. Some minor blockages, but nothing to worry about there. So the legs. So I did a lot of investigating to try to figure out what you had done in the past. And I think what they did was an ablation of your veins because of the varicosities. Because you don't have, the vein that we take out to do bypass surgery with are completely occluded from the top all the way down to the bottom. Which means we don't have enough conduit to do the bypass work that you need. Okay? That's kind of a problem. So, we did those little blood pressure cuff readings. The arteries in your legs are working, but they're very heavily calcified. They're very hard. That's what that study showed, okay? And that's just a product of the renal failure and the diabetes. That's kind of what I expected to find since I wasn't able to feel the pulses in your legs, okay? The big problem is we probably need to do 4 bypasses, and the only thing that we would have available to do the bypass work with is that artery on the inside of the chest wall, which is good for just one, okay?
One bypass.
One bypass only. And it doesn't make sense to try to do a surgery and only do a quarter of the work and put you through all that risk. Okay. So I've been on the phone a lot with Dr. McKellar about this, trying to figure out. He tried to stop by a couple of times to talk with you, but you were in the restroom. So
yeah.
He was able to talk to Dr. Miner. Dr. Miner looked at your heart catheterization again. Okay. He thinks there might be a stenting option available to take care of those blockages on the left side. That right artery is completely blocked, and unfortunately stents just can't treat a completely blocked artery. So we'd have to just leave that alone. And it doesn't make sense. We can't use this artery to get to the right side of the heart. It doesn't reach.
So are you saying I'm not having this surgery?
We're not doing surgery tomorrow.
And ever?
I don't think there's a reason to do surgery ever, okay? But what we think we can do, and what Dr. Miner thinks he can do, is treat those blockages on the left side of the heart. And those are the more significant ones. I think those are the ones that are getting you in trouble and could potentially cause you a lot of trouble in the future.
So the one on the right is 100%?
The one on the right's 100% blocked,
So,
and you really can't do a good job of opening that back up. That would last a long time with stents. Sometimes they can kind of drill through the calcium and open it up a little bit and put a stent in there, but those typically don't stay open very long, so most of the time we just leave them be, okay? The arteries on the left side of the heart, there's a short branch called the left main coronary artery. That has a lot of blockage in it, and that splits into two big arteries that supply blood flow to about 2/3 of most people's heart. And you have blockages in those, okay? So anytime you're trying to put a stent in the major artery that, in your case, is supplying all the blood flow to your heart, that needs a stent, and those 2 branch arteries need a stent. Anytime you're trying to fit stents into a big branch point, that carries a fair bit of risk. Otherwise, you would have already had stents and you and I would have never met. Okay, that's why they referred you to surgery.
Yeah.
But now that we know you don't have enough material to do the bypass work with, sometimes we pull vein out of the freezer that's been donated by somebody else, but that doesn't last very long. It usually lasts a year, 18 months, something like that. So that's really not a good option. It would probably last less in a dialysis patient.
Okay, so they'll do that, try to put the stent in.
Yes.
And if it works, it works. It doesn't.
So one of the things that they want to do to try to maximize the chance of success and minimize your risk is they're going to put a machine called an Impella pump in before they do the stents. Generally, they put that in through the groin, and it's a pump that's kind of shaped like a little corkscrew, and it goes and sits in one of the chambers of the heart and helps pump blood flow through the heart and eject it out into the arteries, okay? Because in order to put a stent in that main artery that's supplying all of the blood flow, when you put the catheter in there, that's going to block blood flow to that artery, and your heart isn't going to have any blood flow, which means your heart isn't going to want to squeeze. So this is a fairly high-risk procedure. And in order to try to bring that risk down, they want to put that Impella device in before they do that. And that's something they'll do in the cath lab as well, okay? You and I talked about your aortic valve. It is pretty calcified and the leaflets don't move real well. That's something that's going to need to be addressed. We have technology to replace that valve on a catheter through the groin. We're planning on just doing the stents now, let you recover from that, and then we'll plan on doing that down the road. okay? But, you know, this is pretty high risk stuff. It's difficult for me to quantify because I'm not the guy that puts the stents in. Dr. Miner will chat with you tomorrow and he'll be able to give you a better idea. But, you know, we talked about some, you know, fairly high risks associated with surgery. My gut says that this is probably higher risk than the surgery, even though it's less invasive, because your entire blood supply to your heart is dependent on that very short segment, and they're going to need to stick catheters and wires through that, okay? So in order to prepare you for that procedure tomorrow, and we need to look at all of the arteries from the top of the heart all the way down to the groin. And the way we do that is with a CT scan. That may be difficult for me to order tonight because it's a very specialized CT scan that takes a specialized crew. So I got to see if they're still here. If not, we're going to do that first thing in the morning, okay? Instead of surgery. So you would go to the CT scanner in the morning, and then after we get those results, then we would take you to do that high-risk stenting procedure, okay? All right, so still nothing to eat or drink after midnight, okay, to prepare you for that procedure tomorrow. But when I looked at those studies and didn't see, you know, enough any vein to do the bypass work with, I called Dr. McKellar and said, we're only going to be able to do a portion of what we're going in to do. You know, and so not only would we leave a job incomplete, but that adds risk of you getting off the heart-lung machine because your heart still doesn't have adequate blood flow and it's just gone through the stress of a big operation. So, you know, instead of that 10% risk that I was talking about, if we were to take you to surgery knowing what we know now, your risk is probably 20 or 30%. So, and that's pretty high, okay? And that's why he called Dr. Miner, and Dr. Miner thinks he has a strategy to try to treat this. And again, this isn't a chip shot tomorrow. These stents, it's a high-risk deal, okay? But we think that now that we know what's going on with your legs, that kind of gives us a little bit better picture, and we think that's probably the only option to treat this. The other, there's always the option of doing nothing. You know, and you and I talked about that earlier. You know, the option of doing nothing would be try to control this with medicines the best we can. Unfortunately, with your low blood pressure, most of those medicines that we use to treat heart symptoms and heart failure also lower the blood pressure, and so they're just not an option for you. So the other option, aside from the high-risk stenting in your situation, is to just, you know, let everything be and go on living your life as long as possible. Okay. So then that's always an option. I mean, you're still a young lady, and you and I talked. It sounds like you still wanted to do some living, and that's perfectly fine. So this is kind of the path forward. Okay. So, all right. I know that's kind of a lot to take in. What kind of questions do you have for me?
Nothing.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
No questions?
Nothing.
I'm going to open it up to the floor then for questions.
Fine. I mean,
Do you guys have questions?
So when will that procedure be? Tomorrow too?
It'll be tomorrow sometime. I mean, we're still late in the day.
Go figure out with the.
Yeah, I've got to see if I can get the CT scan tonight, because I can't wait too long. You know, if they say, yeah, we can do it, but we can't do it till midnight, that delays your ability to dialyze appropriately, and I think that's important. And I'd rather have you dialyze tonight than get the CT scan and then get the CT scan tomorrow. Okay, so if I can get the CT scan tonight, I would anticipate maybe doing the stenting procedure mid-morning. It's a little tough for me to judge because it's a different department and I don't control that schedule. Yeah. If we end up not getting the CT scan till tomorrow morning, you know, then it might spill into the afternoon. Okay.
Okay.
What other questions do you guys have? Does everybody understand kind of the thought process of why we're doing what we're doing and choosing not to go to surgery? Yeah. We can't provide you enough benefit with surgery to justify the risk.
Okay.
Okay. We don't think, you know, would surgery help some? Yeah, but it's not going to help enough to justify the risk. And we think this is probably the better, safer option and the best chance of getting you what you really need. Okay? So that's how we're going to proceed, okay?
So my breathing and everything like that will still be the same then?
So having those stents in place is going to give your heart more blood flow, which should make your heart work better, work stronger, give you some more stamina with moving, okay? We're not addressing the aortic valve, which plays a considerable amount into your shortness of breath, your exercise tolerance, and those type of things. But if this goes well, there's no reason we can't treat that with a catheter-based valve down the road. We just think the stenting procedure is risky enough. We don't want to complicate things by trying to do the valve on top of it. We want to get you through the stenting, make sure your heart's doing okay, give your chance your heart to recover, because your heart's going to take a hit tomorrow because it's going to be starved for oxygen while they're putting those stents in, just because you only have blood flow through one little artery that's supplying the whole heart, and we're going to have instruments in there blocking that blood flow.
Okay.
That Impella device is going to help pump your blood out to the rest of your body and hopefully
So does
protect
that
you.
stay in me?
That will probably stay in you for a day or two
Oh.
while your heart recovers. I would anticipate your heart function really taking a hit and not squeezing so well for a couple of days from that period of time being starved from oxygen.
But then if I live through that, then it stays in me forever?
It won't stay in forever. Usually we leave it in for a few days while your heart recovers and then take it out.
Okay.
Okay? And that's something that usually goes in through the groin. Occasionally we will put it in through an artery up here on the chest wall. But that's why we're getting that CT scan, to see what condition your arteries are in, so we can plan the best approach for that. Okay? And then if you do well, your heart recovers, then we can start considering the fixing that valve with the catheter. Okay?
Okay.
There are a fair bit of risks associated with tomorrow's procedure. Death is certainly top of the list. Life-threatening heart arrhythmias. You could damage the arteries as you're putting these stents in. Dr. Miner will talk to you about all those things in more detail tomorrow. He's really the expert, so I'll let him really explain what he's planning on doing. But I just want to stress upon you, even though you're probably taking, because I know you weren't excited about going to surgery, you're probably taking a sigh of relief. Oh, we're going to do something else. But what they're going to do tomorrow still has a fair bit of risk associated with it. Okay, so it's important that everybody knows that. Tomorrow's a big deal. Okay. It's the reason we didn't offer you this in the first place. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I got to go make a few more phone calls and talk to a few people about you, okay? But I promise I'll only say good things. Okay?
You better.
Yes, ma'am. Do you guys have any other questions?
No.
Okay, kiddo. Try to get some sleep tonight, okay?
Okay.
I'll have your nurse get you word if it looks like we're going to be able to do that CT scan tonight, okay? All right. I bet 80-90% chance it's probably going to be in the morning. Okay.
Okay.
Just with dialysis. What time do you normally start your peritoneal dialysis?
Depends if I have a doctor's appointment or not.
Oh.
It's not a regular time.
Not a regular
Sometimes
time?
If I have an early doctor's appointment, I go on like 5:30.
Okay.
And if I don't, if it's, I don't, the next day I have it at 3. I go on whenever.
How long do you normally circulate the diastolate?
It's 9 hours.
It's a 9-hour treatment. You know what? That's
Yeah, because if 8 o'clock would be get
Yeah,
off at
4
around
hours.
5.
so if you started now, you're going to be off at 5.
Yeah.
You've got company. You're going to want to visit.
No.
Let's just plan on doing it tomorrow. I don't think I can get the CT scan done
Oh,
in an
okay.
hour or two.
Okay.
If it's going to happen, it's probably not going to be till 10 or 11. I don't want to push your dialysis back that far. All right,
Okay.
because I need the dialysis run
Yeah.
to prepare you for tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just plan on that. We'll do dialysis tonight like you normally do. I talked to Dr. Gopinath's partner, Dr. Barklow. He was going to put some orders in. He was going to change your diastolate bath a little bit to help prepare you for the open surgery, and that will help prepare you for tomorrow.
Okay. So
So,
what
he gave you is what I want you to use.
Okay.
Yep, it's probably a little bit different than what you're used to at
Oh,
home.
so is it the same amount of time though?
It should be, yeah. The nursing staff should be able to help you with the orders, but generally, they don't change the time. Oftentimes, they'll just change the bath.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Get a good night's sleep, okay? All right, we'll talk later, okay? Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.